I, 28F, have been married to my husband Adam, 30M, for 3 years now. Like any marriage, we've had our good and bad moments, but overall, I thought we were in a pretty solid place. That's why what's happening now has completely blindsided me, and I'm starting to wonder if I somehow caused this mess. Let me tell you about my aunt. I'll call her Natalie. She's always been, let's just say, a bit over the top. Growing up, she was the type who'd do something nice for you but then never let you forget it. She'd constantly remind everyone of how much she'd done for them and how they owed her. It was her way of keeping control. Everyone in the family knows she can be manipulative, but I never thought I'd get caught up in her drama. Especially not like this. When I was younger, around 18 or 19, I hit a really tough spot financially. My parents weren't around, and I was just starting out on my own, barely making ends meet with part-time jobs. It was a rough time, and Natalie stepped in to help. She lent me some money. Not a fortune, but enough to keep me afloat for a couple of months while I got back on my feet. I was really grateful at the time, and once I was able to, I paid her back in full. I thought that was the end of it, and for years it seemed like it was. She never brought it up again, so I figured it was all behind us. Now, Natalie has a daughter. Let's call her Grace. Grace and I were never close. She's a couple of years younger than me, and we've always run in different circles. Honestly, we've never really gotten along. Grace has always been the spoiled, entitled type, always getting whatever she wants because Natalie puts her on a pedestal. At family gatherings, Grace is always the star. She gets the best gifts, the most attention, everything. Over the years, I've learned to just brush it off because that's just how Natalie is. She treats Grace like royalty, and the rest of us are supposed to feel lucky just to be around them. So, Grace's 26th birthday is coming up, and Natalie has been hinting for weeks about how this birthday needs to be extra special. At first, I didn't think much of it. Grace's birthday isn't exactly a big deal to me. I just nod and say, "Oh, that sounds nice," whenever Natalie brought it up, but I wasn't really paying attention. Then, out of the blue, Natalie called me one evening and said she needed to talk about something important. I assumed it was about Grace's birthday or some family event, so I agreed to meet her. When we got together, she dropped this bombshell of a request that left me speechless. She straight up told me that the only thing Grace really wants for her birthday is for me to leave my husband, Adam. I was floored. Like, what? How could she even think that's okay? Natalie went on to explain that Grace has had a crush on Adam for years, something I had no clue about, and that Grace is convinced he's her soulmate. Apparently, Grace has been hung up on him since they first met, and now that she's turning 26, she feels like it's her last chance to be with him. She actually believes Adam is meant to be with her and that I'm somehow standing in the way of their happiness. At first, I thought this had to be some kind of joke. There's no way Natalie could seriously expect me to leave my husband as a birthday present for her daughter. But the more she talked, the more I realized she was completely serious. She even brought up the money she lent me years ago, saying I owed her and that this was the perfect way to repay her. According to Natalie, if I was truly grateful for her helping me back then, I'd do this one thing for Grace. I was absolutely stunned. Of course, I said no. There was no way I was going to end my marriage over something so ridiculous. I told Natalie this was insane, that I'd never leave Adam, and that I didn't owe her anything. I'd paid her back the money, and whatever favor she thought she'd done for me didn't give her the right to demand something like this. She didn't take it well. Natalie got angry and started calling me ungrateful and selfish. She went on and on about how Grace deserved happiness, how she'd sacrificed so much for me over the years, and how I was ruining everything by not going along with her crazy plan. After that conversation, I felt drained but sure I'd done the right thing. I wasn't going to let her control me like that. I didn't dwell on it much, but a few days later, things started shifting between me and Adam. He started acting distant and colder than usual. When I asked him what was wrong, he just brushed me off. I thought maybe he was stressed about work or something, but then he sat me down and dropped the bomb. He was leaving me. He didn't explain much, just said things weren't working and it was time for us to go our separate ways. I was completely heartbroken. It felt like it came out of nowhere, and I couldn't figure out what had changed so fast. It wasn't until a mutual friend reached out that I found out the truth. Turns out, Natalie went behind my back after our talk and told Adam everything. But she twisted the story to make me look like the bad guy. She told him I was ungrateful for everything she'd done, that I didn't care about family, and that I'd been keeping secrets from him. She even made up lies about how I'd been cold and distant toward Adam, painting me as the reason our marriage was falling apart. From what I heard, she convinced him I wasn't being honest, and that was enough to make him walk away. Right now, I'm trying to put my life back together after my husband left me. all because of my manipulative aunt. Part of me wonders if there were already cracks in our marriage, and this was just the final blow. Maybe I missed some red flags. Maybe I wasn't as good a wife as I thought. But another part of me is just angry. How could Natalie do this to me? How could she sneak behind my back and destroy my marriage just because I didn't give in to her demands? And why did Adam believe her so easily? Shouldn't he have trusted me enough to at least talk to me before making such a huge decision? I'm so confused and hurt right now, and I don't even know where to start. My family is split. Some think I should have just let it go, while others agree Natalie went too far. But honestly, I don't think this is just about Natalie anymore. I feel like there's a bigger issue here, like Adam was already looking for a way out, and this was just the excuse he needed. I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but I can't shake the feeling that this is somehow my fault. Maybe if I'd handled things differently with Natalie, or if I'd paid more attention to Adam's needs, none of this would have happened. But at the same time, I feel like I was stuck in a no-win situation. No matter what I did, I was going to lose something. So, is it my fault for saying no to my aunt's crazy demand to leave my husband as a birthday gift for her daughter? And is it my fault that my husband left me because of what she told him? I really need some perspective because everything feels like it's falling apart, and I don't know what to do or where to turn. Update 1. Hey everyone. It's been a few weeks since my life pretty much fell apart, and I'm still trying to figure out how to move on after everything that happened with my Aunt Natalie and my husband Adam. It's been really tough to process everything. I didn't think I'd ever be posting an update, but here I am, trying to make sense of it all. At first, I thought it was all because of Natalie meddling in things, but after everything that's happened, I've started to wonder if there was something deeper going on between Adam and me. Something I didn't notice. I've been trying to put the pieces together, and I keep asking myself, was our relationship already broken, and I just didn't see it? When Adam told me he was leaving, he didn't explain much. He just said things weren't working out and that it was time for us to go our separate ways. There wasn't some big fight or dramatic moment. It just ended. I was heartbroken and confused. I thought we were solid, or at least as solid as any marriage with its ups and downs. Felt like it came out of nowhere. After a few days of thinking things over, I decided to reach out to Adam. I wasn't ready to give up without at least talking about it. I texted him, asking if we could meet up and discuss what happened. He didn't reply right away, and I spent the next few days in this awful waiting game, hoping for some kind of response. When he finally texted back, he said he didn't want to talk and that his mind was made up. I was crushed. It felt like he just shut the door on us without a second thought. But that wasn't even the worst part. He also told me he was already seeing someone else. And keep in mind, it hadn't even been a full month since he left me. When I found out he'd moved on so quickly, it felt like my world completely shattered. Was this someone he'd been seeing before we split? Was I really that blind that I didn't notice him pulling away sooner? I didn't ask him any of those questions because, honestly, I didn't want to know the answers. It felt like everything we had was just wiped away in an instant. It's hard to put into words everything I've been feeling. Anger, betrayal, confusion. It's all hitting me at once. How could he move on so fast? How could he just let go of everything we built together? I keep asking myself if this new relationship started before he left me or if there were problems in our marriage that I just didn't see. I've been replaying every conversation we had over the last few months, trying to spot any red flags I might have missed. But nothing really stands out. We had our usual disagreements, nothing major, and I never thought things would fall apart like this. Maybe I was too caught up in my own life and didn't notice him pulling away. Or maybe Adam had been looking for a way out all along, and Natalie's meddling just gave him the excuse he needed. My family is split on the whole situation. Some think I should have let it go and avoided the drama with Natalie, while others believe Natalie was completely out of line and that I did the right thing by standing up to her. But in the end, none of that really matters. The damage is done. Adam's gone, and now I'm left trying to figure out how to start over while he's already moved on with someone else. I haven't spoken to Natalie or Grace since everything happened. They're completely out of my life now, and honestly, it's a relief not to have their toxic energy around me. The fact that Natalie could go behind my back, manipulate Adam, and basically destroy my marriage still blows my mind. But I've realized there's no point in dwelling on it. What's done is done, and I need to focus on moving forward. I'll be honest, I think Adam might be seeing Grace. It would make sense, since Natalie wanted me out of the picture so Grace and Adam could be together. Maybe that's what's happening now. I don't know for sure, but I want to find out. As for Adam, I wish I could say I'm over him, but I'm not. I still love him and I probably always will. But I know our marriage is over. He's moved on, and now it's my turn to do the same. It's going to take time to heal, and some days the pain feels unbearable, but I'm hoping I'll get through this eventually. Update 2. Hey everyone. First off, thank you so much for all the support, advice, and kind words you shared on my last post. I never imagined so many people would care about what I'm going through, and it really means a lot to me. Before I get into the update, I want to clear something up that a lot of you brought up. Many of you thought Adam might be involved with Grace, and honestly, I started to believe it too. Natalie, my aunt, kept pushing me to leave Adam for Grace's sake, and the way everything unfolded made it seem like there was something going on between them. I mean, why else would she ask me to leave my husband as a birthday gift for her daughter, right? It just didn't make sense unless Adam and Grace were already together. But here's where things took a crazy and really messed up turn. About 2 weeks ago, I got a message from Steven, Natalie's husband and Grace's dad. I hadn't talked to him in a while, especially after everything that went down, but he insisted we meet in person because he had something important to tell me. At first, I was hesitant. I didn't want to dive back into more family drama after everything with Natalie and Grace. But something about the way Steven sounded made me curious, so I agreed to meet him. When we met up, Steven looked exhausted, like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. I could tell right away that whatever he was about to say wasn't going to be easy to hear. He started by apologizing for Natalie and Grace and everything that had happened. I had no idea where he was going with this, but then he dropped a bombshell I never saw coming. Adam wasn't seeing Grace. He was seeing Natalie. Yes, my aunt, my 50-year-old, manipulative, toxic Aunt Natalie. I was completely stunned. My mind went blank as I tried to process what he was saying. For a second, I thought I must have heard him wrong, but Steven kept going, explaining everything in painful detail. Turns out, Natalie and Adam had been having an affair for months. Steven found out when he came home early from a business trip one weekend. He walked into their house, into their bedroom, and caught them together, my husband and my aunt, in his own bed. Steven said he wasn't sure exactly how long it had been going on, but from the texts and messages he found, it had been at least a few months, if not longer. Natalie had been secretly seeing Adam while she was pressuring me to leave him for Grace. The whole birthday present thing was just a smokescreen, a way to manipulate me and everyone else while she carried on her affair with my husband behind the scenes. I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. I thought I was ready for anything, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. I was struggling to process what Steven was telling me. Natalie, of all people? I always knew she was manipulative, but I never thought she'd stoop this low. And Adam, the man I thought I knew, the man I built a life with, had he really been sneaking around with my aunt this whole time? But it didn't end there. Steven went on to say that Natalie had decided to leave him. Apparently, she and Adam were planning to blow everything up, and Natalie was going to leave Steven on Grace's birthday. Yes, you heard that right. She was planning to destroy her own family on her daughter's birthday just to run off with my husband. Grace had no idea about any of this, which makes it even more twisted. Natalie used her own daughter as a pawn in this sick game, making everyone think Grace had feelings for Adam when, in reality, she was the one sleeping with him. Steven told me all of this, and I just sat there, completely shocked. I didn't even know how to react. I'd been so focused on figuring out if Adam was involved with Grace, but the truth was Natalie, my own aunt, had played me in the worst way possible. After Steven finished telling me everything, he handed me his phone and showed me some of the messages between Natalie and Adam. I couldn't look at them for long. It was too painful. The way they talked about me, their plans, and how they were going to start fresh once everything settled made me feel sick to my stomach. I still can't believe it. For weeks, I'd been trying to come to terms with the idea that Adam might have feelings for Grace. But this was something I never could have imagined. Natalie had planned this whole thing from the start. She manipulated me, her own husband, and everyone else while secretly having an affair with my husband. I've been trying to figure out what to do next, but honestly, I'm still in shock. I thought I was dealing with a husband who left me for another woman, but now I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact that he left me for my aunt, someone I thought was family. I don't even know if they're still together or if their plan fell apart after Steven caught them. At this point, part of me doesn't even care. What's done is done, and no matter what happens with them, the damage to me is already there. I wish I could say there's a silver lining in all of this, but right now, I'm just trying to get through each day. I'll keep you all updated if anything changes, but for now, I'm just focusing on how to move forward after everything that's happened. Thanks again for all the support. It's been a lifeline during this nightmare. Update 3. Hey everyone. It's been a while since my last update, and a lot has happened. I'm hoping this will be the final chapter of this whole mess I've been dealing with. I finally faced Adam, and honestly, it didn't go the way I hoped, but it did give me some closure. Deep down, I always knew I'd have to confront him at some point, but I didn't expect it to be so intense, or that he'd end up begging me to take him back after realizing Natalie wasn't the person he thought she was. It's hard to put into words how I felt leading up to that moment, but I knew I couldn't move on without talking to him. I needed to say what was on my mind and get the full truth from him, no more avoiding it or wondering. So, I reached out and told him we needed to meet. We chose a park, somewhere neutral where I thought I could keep my emotions under control. I didn't want to do this at our house, a place filled with too many memories, both good and bad. When I got to the park and saw him, it was strange. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days, but I didn't bother asking why. I just got straight to the point. I told him I knew everything about Natalie, how he'd been sneaking around with her while I was at home, trusting him and loving him. The look on his face wasn't the usual caught in the act shock. It was more like guilt. He couldn't even look me in the eye at first. He didn't try to defend himself or make excuses, which surprised me. Instead, he just nodded and admitted it. He confirmed everything. In a way, it felt underwhelming. No yelling, no drama. Just this sad confession that he'd ruined our marriage by having an affair. I had so much I wanted to say. I'd gone over it in my head a million times. But when the moment came, all I could manage was, why? I needed to know what went wrong. Was it something about us? Or about me? That made him cheat? Adam started talking about how he wasn't happy anymore, how our marriage had become routine, and how Natalie made him feel alive again. Hearing that felt like a punch to the stomach. I couldn't believe he was using that as an excuse, as if being bored was a reason to blow up our lives. I stood there, completely disgusted. I didn't hold back. I told him straight up that his selfishness had cost him everything. There were so many other ways he could have handled feeling stuck. We could have gone to therapy, taken a break, or just talked it out. But instead, he chose to cheat, lie, and destroy our marriage. That's when I told him I was filing for divorce. I said it clearly, without hesitation, and for the first time I felt a weird sense of power. I wasn't begging him to stay or forgiving him for his terrible choices. I was done. And then, out of nowhere, Adam completely broke down. This was a side of him I'd never seen before. He wasn't just crying, he was sobbing. He grabbed my hands and begged me not to go through with the divorce. He said things with Natalie had fallen apart, that she wasn't who he thought she was, and now he realized he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. He admitted that once the excitement of their affair wore off, her true colors came out. Apparently, she's manipulative and controlling, always picking fights and even threatening to expose their affair if he didn't do what she wanted. He said she'd made his life miserable, and he regretted everything. It was surreal to watch him, this man who always seemed so unshakable, completely fall apart in front of me. He told me he felt lost without me and couldn't believe he'd thrown away our life for someone like Natalie. He said he still loved me and would do anything to fix things. But honestly, I didn't feel anything. No sympathy, no desire to take him back, not even pity for what he was going through with Natalie. I just felt numb. The trust was gone, and no amount of tears or apologies could ever bring it back. I told him it was too late. There was no way to undo what he'd done, and I wasn't interested in trying to fix our broken marriage. I think that's when it finally hit him. I was serious. I wasn't going to forgive him, and there was no chance of us getting back together. He kept begging, saying he'd do whatever it took to make things right, but my mind was made up. I told him I deserved better, that I was moving on with my life, and that there was no future for us anymore. Part of me expected him to get angry, to lash out like he used to when we argued. But he didn't. Instead, he just crumbled even more, realizing he'd lost me for good. I didn't stick around after that. I walked away and didn't look back. I've already filed for divorce, and honestly, it feels like a huge weight has been lifted. Don't get me wrong, it hasn't been easy. There are still moments when the hurt and betrayal feel overwhelming, like I can't even breathe. But I know I made the right choice. This is what I need to do to heal and start building a new life for myself. From what I've heard, Natalie is furious with Adam for trying to get back with me. Apparently, things between them went downhill fast after the truth came out, and now they're both miserable. Adam's dealing with the consequences of his choices, and while I'd never wish that kind of chaos on anyone, it's not my problem anymore. I don't care what happens between them. I'm just glad to be free of it all. I've cut Natalie out of my life completely. There's no forgiveness there, no chance of ever reconciling. I don't have room in my heart for people who betray me like that. She's out of the picture, and I'm focusing on myself now. This whole experience has been the hardest thing I've ever gone through, but it's also taught me so much about my own strength. I've realized I don't need someone who disrespects me, lies to me, or cheats on me. I deserve a partner who values me and our relationship, and I'm never going to settle for less than that again. So that's where I'm at. I'm moving on one step at a time. It's going to take a while to heal, but I know I'm on the right path. Thank you to everyone who's given me advice and support along the way. It's meant more than I can say. I'm finally ready to leave this drama behind and start living my life again.